My parents kicked me out of the house but forgot that I was the one paying all the bills. I never thought Christmas dinner would be the last time I'd sit at that table as part of the family. The night had been going fine. Turkey on the table, carols playing softly, my sister Lily laughing at a bad joke I made. Then, out of nowhere, my dad put down his fork, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You need to move out. You're a burden." The room went silent. My mom looked away, not arguing, not defending me, just letting it happen. Lily's smile dropped instantly, her eyes darting between us in disbelief. At first, I thought it was some cruel joke, but the way my father kept eating, so casual, so unaffected, made it clear he wasn't kidding. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't even look up. "You're old enough to be on your own," he said, as if I hadn't been the one keeping the lights on in this house. My stomach twisted. I had paid for groceries, utilities, even covered their mortgage when my dad lost his job. And now, just like that, I was disposable. Lily was the only one who spoke up. "This isn't fair," she said, her voice shaking. "He helps us. He's the reason we're even celebrating Christmas right now." My dad shot her a warning look, and my mom finally opened her mouth. "It's just time," she murmured, but there was hesitation, like she knew this was wrong but wouldn't fight it. I searched her face for something, guilt, regret, anything, but all I saw was tired compliance. She wasn't going to save me. I left that night. There was no grand exit, no screaming match. Just me packing a single suitcase while my father sat on the couch, flipping through channels like nothing had happened. My mom stayed in the kitchen, pretending to clean up. Lily followed me to the door, her hands clenched into fists. "I'll keep in touch," she whispered, her voice breaking. I nodded, but inside, something in me had already snapped. As I walked out into the cold December night, I realized I had never felt more alone. It wasn't just that I had lost my home. I had lost the illusion that I ever really belonged there. The family I had fought so hard to support had no problem discarding me when I was no longer convenient. And the worst part? They didn't even seem to care. That was the moment I knew I was done. Not just with my father, but with all of them. The ties that held me to that house, to that family, had been severed in an instant. And as I stepped off the porch, I made a silent promise to myself. They would never see a single dime from me again. The first thing I did after settling into my tiny apartment was cut off every bill I had been paying for them. Electricity, internet, phone, gone. At first, I expected some kind of reaction, maybe an angry text or a call demanding an explanation. But the silence was deafening. It wasn't until a week later that my dad finally reached out. Not with an apology, not with concern, just a single, rage-filled message. "Did you cut the damn power?" I didn't reply. I didn't owe them anything, least of all an explanation. For years, I had been the invisible backbone of that house, keeping things running while my dad refused to get his act together. And now, without me, reality was hitting them hard. I pictured them sitting in the dark, my dad fuming, my mom scrambling for a solution that didn't involve actually holding him accountable. A small part of me felt satisfaction, but mostly I just felt numb. Then things took a darker turn. One morning, I got an alert from my bank. Someone had tried to access my account. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly who it was. My dad had always been reckless with money, but I never thought he'd stoop this low. The attempt failed, of course, but the fact that he even tried confirmed everything I had been forcing myself to deny. To him, I had never been a son. I had been a wallet. That was the last straw. I called the bank, locked everything down, and changed every password. The next time my dad texted, I finally responded, "Stay out of my life." No anger, no explanations. Just a boundary set in stone. He tried to call right after, but I didn't pick up. I had nothing left to say. They had kicked me out like I was nothing. Now they could live without me. Days passed, then weeks. Lily texted me now and then, giving me small updates. "Dad's pissed. Mom keeps saying she'll figure something out," but she never did. The bills piled up. The house started to crumble without my support. And yet, they never once asked me to come back. Not as a son anyway, just as a paycheck. I thought that would be the end of it, that they'd just suffer in silence. But then my phone buzzed with a new message, from my mom this time. I clicked on it, expecting more guilt tripping. Instead, it was something I never saw coming. Something that made my blood run cold. At first, I thought I had read the message wrong. "I had to pawn your laptop. We needed the money. You'll understand one day." My blood ran cold. That laptop wasn't just some device, it was my lifeline. Everything was on it. My work, personal files, even years of memories. And my mom had stolen it like it was nothing. No apology, no hesitation, just a weak excuse, as if I should feel bad for them. I called her, barely able to keep my voice steady. "Where is it?" I demanded. She sighed, exasperated. I was the one being difficult, apparently. "We had no choice," she said. "You left us with nothing." I almost laughed at the irony. They were the ones who had thrown me out. "Tell me where it is, or I'm calling the cops," I warned. Her voice hardened. "Do what you have to do." So I did. The police officer I spoke to took the situation seriously. "If it was pawned recently, we might be able to recover it," he said. That was all I needed to hear. I filed the report, giving them everything they needed: my mom's name, the pawnshop locations near my old house. She probably thought I'd never go this far. She was wrong. The next afternoon, Lily texted me, panicked. "The cops just showed up. Mom's getting arrested. Dad is furious." I stared at the message, feeling nothing. Maybe I should have felt guilt, anger, something, but all I felt was relief. She had betrayed me, stolen from me, and expected no consequences. This was justice. And yet, I knew my dad wouldn't let it end there. That night, just as I was settling into bed, there was a loud bang at my door. Then another, harder this time. My phone lit up. A text from Lily, "Dad's coming for you." My stomach dropped. I had cut them off, involved the police, but my father had never been the type to just accept defeat. He was coming, and I had no idea what he would do when I opened that door. I stood frozen for a second, heart pounding, then grabbed my phone with shaky hands. If my dad thought he could intimidate me into fixing his mistakes, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. I didn't open the door. I stood there, phone in hand, as my dad pounded his fists against the wood. "Open up," he shouted. "You think you can do this to us?" His voice was slurred, either from rage or alcohol, maybe both. My hands shook, but I wasn't about to let him in. Instead, I did exactly what I knew would push him over the edge. I called the cops. He heard me say the words, "There's a man trying to break into my apartment," and went silent. Then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, he was gone. That was the last time I saw my father in person. The cops found him a few blocks away, drunk and aggressive. He got arrested for attempted trespassing and public intoxication. Lily told me later that my mom bailed him out, but the damage was already done. His record made it even harder for him to find work. No one wanted to hire a guy with legal trouble hanging over his head. And without my financial support, things at home were unraveling fast. My mom tried to pick up the slack, but it was obvious she wasn't handling things well. She had to dip into their savings to cover legal fees, which meant falling behind on bills. The electricity was shut off first, then the internet. Eventually, they couldn't even keep up with the mortgage. Lily told me my mom spent most of her days crying, my dad just drinking himself into oblivion. The house, once something I had helped maintain, was now falling apart around them. I should have felt something: regret, sympathy, anything. But all I could think was, this is what they chose. They had a son who was willing to help, to provide, to carry the weight they refused to. And instead of appreciating it, they threw me out like I was nothing. Now, they were paying the price. The world didn't stop spinning just because they didn't like the consequences of their actions. Lily finally reached her breaking point. She had been trying to stay strong, but she couldn't keep living in that mess. "I'm leaving," she told me one night over the phone. "I applied for scholarships. I'll find a way." My chest tightened. She was the only one who had ever stood by me, and now she was ready to save herself too. I told her I'd help however I could. I meant it. My parents must have realized what was happening, because they started reaching out. First my mom, long-winded, guilt-tripping messages about how family forgives. Then my dad's short, angry texts demanding I do the right thing. I ignored them both. They weren't looking for reconciliation. They were looking for a way out of the hole they had dug themselves into. And I refused to be their lifeline ever again. For the next 2 years, I didn't speak to my parents. Not once. At first, they tried everything. Angry messages, guilt-tripping voicemails, even getting distant relatives to reach out on their behalf. But I never responded. Every time my phone buzzed with their names, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold certainty that my life was better without them. And I was right. Meanwhile, Lily followed through on her plan. She got accepted into college with scholarships and moved into student housing. We kept in touch often, and she told me bits and pieces about our parents' situation. It wasn't good. My mom had taken out loans she couldn't pay back. My dad had lost his driver's license after a DUI. They were sinking fast. But no matter how bad it got, they never apologized. Never admitted they had done anything wrong. One night, Lily called me, her voice quiet. "They lost the house," she said. It should have been shocking, but honestly, I had seen it coming. Without my financial support, without any real effort to fix their lives, this was inevitable. They had burned every bridge, used up every favor. Now they had nothing. Are they homeless? I asked, not out of concern, just curiosity. "Staying with some distant cousin," she said. "But it won't last." I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the wake-up call they needed. That they'd finally acknowledge what they did to me. That they'd realize how deeply they had messed up. But no. A week later, I got another message from my mom. "We know we've had our differences, but family sticks together. Can we talk?" It was the same manipulative nonsense as before. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I regret what we did." Just another attempt to pull me back in. I deleted the message. Lily asked me once if I thought I'd ever forgive them. I told her the truth. Maybe, but forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back into my life. I wasn't angry anymore. I had moved past that. But I wasn't going to reopen a door that was better left closed. I had built something good for myself. A life without their toxicity, without their control. And I wasn't about to risk that for people who had proven, time and time again, that they didn't deserve me. So that's how it ended. No dramatic confrontation. No last-minute redemption arc. Just me, finally free. My parents had made their choices, and I had made mine. And for the first time in my life, I didn't regret a single thing.